Hello. So, I don't normally do this, of course, and I don't really actually know if this is going to come out, but you know, Charlie Kirk that happened yesterday, and there's just so much slop on the internet about it. I cannot help but have a very strong reaction. And why not throw it into the void? So, at the risk of alienating what little audience I have, I feel compelled to say two things that I will share with you all now. Number one, I think that people on the left leaning side of the coin here have fundamentally misunderstood the importance, the significance of what has just happened. And even on the right as well, I haven't really seen people key on why this is a particularly insidious assassination to have happened. When we take a step back and you realize that this guy gained notoriety for going around college campuses and debating people. Like, his whole thing was like slamming on libs and going viral for it, right? That's his entire the pretext for how he got such a large following, for his speech, particularly in open discourse. And then at the end of it all, he is in the middle of a back and forth debate, Q&A, whatever, with a adversarial, presumably a college student, whatever. And his tour is called Prove Me Wrong. Come and talk to me. Come debate me. Come slam on me. And I'll fucking post it on TikTok. He's inviting people who disagree with him to come up to him, tell him why he's wrong, and go viral for it. Right? And he's killed for it. In public, on display, for the world to see. This is a direct act of violence against speech. It is just a overt it's an overt unraveling and undermining of the First Amendment. It's an attack literally on everybody's rights. And we see this language a lot, right? Like, my rights are being taken away and blah, 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 blah. Whatever, you may agree, not agree, whatever. I don't fucking know. I don't really care. But I do know that in this instance, it is overt and undeniable that this is an attack against the right to speech in public discourse, open debate, which is really the pillar of Western civil liberties. And that is what makes this so sickening. It's a public assassination of a guy who's engaged in debate and got his whole name through speech. A civilian. And again, it's not to say that speech isn't powerful, that it's just words and blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the fact that they are powerful and the fact that they are protected is what makes this so unnerving. His rights, and by extension, everybody's rights, were denied blatantly and publicly and violently. And that is just completely nutso. And everybody's reaction to that as like adjusted, like obviously there's going to be an emotional reaction. I understand that. But beyond that, why aren't people realizing the gravity of this in the context of the First Amendment? You know, on the left, a large percentage of people are expressing no sympathy, saying that he had it coming because his speech, therefore, put him in the line of fire, right? Which I think is a crazy take in and of itself. But then on the right, you see the reply to that take being like, "Oh no, he was a father and a husband, et cetera, and all of that is true, and a legitimate like response to the lack of empathy, like whatever." But the fact that people don't show empathy is not the issue here. Like, who cares? People are inconsiderate or not or whatever. The gravity of this lies in the fact that people who are affirming this as some sort of justifiable act are not only callous and, malicious to that extent that they are not empathetic of someone that disagrees with them. They are also affirming and justifying the idea that it is okay to silence people with violence for speech that they don't agree with, that the First Amendment should only apply to people of certain groups, that rights are not intrinsic but are only that are selective based on your bias and predisposition and group. Like, what? How and then the question, like, my number 2 reason for making this video is the question of, well, and how did we get here to where not only this occurs, but then the reaction to the occurrence has been what it is. And ironically, like, college and college students have a lot to do with it, in my view. I think the answer to how we got here is actually very straightforward. Again, on the left and even on the right a little bit, people are saying, like, the shooter did what he did. Obviously, we don't have, by this recording or whatever, like, I don't know. I don't think they caught the shooter, and, like, the motives are not firmly understood yet, but we can assume that this is a politically motivated violent assassination for things that Charlie Kirk said. I feel like that's a safe assumption. So operating on that assumption, the explanation for this has been, oh, well, his ideas were radical to the extent that they're pushing crazy people to the edge, and that's what explains what has happened. And I think that is so retarded. It's just a fundamental misunderstanding of where we are in society right now. Jonathan Haidt wrote a great book. He's an academic. I think he's like a clinical psychologist. And he wrote a great book called Coddling of the American Mind. And in this book, he evaluates the discourse and atmosphere of critical thought and the lack thereof on college campuses, sort of starting in 2012 or 2013 through, let's say, 2016, 17. And during this time, many professors and otherwise administration, faculty, etc., were losing their jobs for things that they had said. Student bodies were calling for professors to be, again, fired, or in some cases, students would protest, if you can call it that, more like riot, aggressively, sort of sometimes trap professors into classrooms and do all sorts of very radical things based on things that the professors had said or said in the past. And this is not new, obviously, now. It's sort of a delineation of like cancel culture, but this was the early form of it. And it was a radical and very new response to speech, where speech was categorized as something other than speech. And in the book, Jonathan Haidt talks about this idea of concept creep. And concept creep is essentially understanding phenomena as something broader than the phenomena itself. Objective measures to evaluate something can be slowly expanded to include subjective measures to broaden the definition of that thing. So in this case, he talks about how speech and violence have had concept creep, where violence, the definition of violence, has been slowly expanded to include speech. That speech is equal to harmful act. And this is something that, we see very broadly now. And it's something that is very sort of accepted as true or normal. Terms like hate speech, there has been a radical misalignment of what the capabilities of speech are and is. Of course, you can have speech that is violent to a degree, right? You can have speech that are direct calls for violence. You can have speech like, execute him, right? That would be a violent thing to say. But we're talking about something very different. We're talking about things that are ideologically opposing and categorizing ideological opposition as hate speech, as somehow different from normal speech. And then from there, we can say, well, those words are harmful, physically harmful. I'm in physical harm, physical distress as a result of your hate speech. And from there, now I can justify means to oppose that speech that are greater than just counter speech. Now I can justify a wide range of things because I'm being physically harmed. And this is, again, a very basic and normal thing that we've seen really for a long time. It started with the whole safe spaces thing on college campuses, where students could not engage in certain degrees of critical thinking because they were under harm by certain ideas, things like trigger warnings, etc. It's the idea that words will hurt you. And the danger with that is that once you decide words can hurt you, then you also decide that you can stop those words from occurring with things other than words. And that is how we find ourselves with what happened yesterday. There is a large subset of people that believe that Charlie Kirk's words were causing physical harm. This is not a radical thing to say. People believe this. This is widely accepted that his words were harmful physically. And if you can conceptualize that, then you can conceptualize a harmful, physically harmful retort to those words with things other than words. And that's what we saw. So this idea that these are only crazy people pushed to the edge by radical right-wing dialogue and rhetoric, that this sort of rhetoric begets violence. I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what's going on. It's more accurate to say that when we categorize speech as something broader to include physical harm, then we justify and rationalize physical harm as a counteraction to that speech. And that's fucking crazy. That is insane. So, yeah, I think that's it. I don't know if I'm going to post this or not, but that's what I think. So, and that last part of what I said is really the most important part. So I hope maybe you got this far. If you did, if there's anybody out there listening and you heard that, thanks for listening. And if there's anything else you heard, including that or otherwise, that you disagree with fundamentally, I would love to hear why. And I would love to engage with you about why you feel that way. And, yeah. So these are my thoughts. Anyway, thanks for listening. Love you. Bye.